The human ship was smaller than Hana expected. It was called the Persistence, which she learned was a very human name. Everything about it was practical and plain, built for function rather than beauty. The walls were gray metal. The corridors were narrow. It looked like a ship that expected to see combat. "Strap in tight," said Unji the pilot. She was a woman with quick hands and quicker eyes, the kind of person who seemed to move faster than everyone else. "This is going to be rough." Hana sat in the observer seat on the bridge, her safety harness feeling too loose and too tight at the same time. Around her, the human crew worked with focused intensity. No one was panicking. No one was frozen with fear like a Valari would be. But she could see it in their faces. They knew this was dangerous. They just weren't letting it stop them. Coalition Council voted to send a proper military response. Daehyun reported from his station. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours. "The colony doesn't have 6 hours, Jiho said. He stood at the center of the bridge, studying a tactical display. "Yoonji, how fast can you get us there?" 2 hours if I push the engines past recommended limits." "Do it." The ship lurched forward and Hana felt her stomach drop. Through the windows, stars stretched into lines as they accelerated beyond what should be safe. Yoonji's hands moved across the controls like she was playing a musical instrument, making constant tiny adjustments. "You've done this before," Hana said to her. "Done what?" "Rescued people from a Krell swarm." Yoonji laughed, but it sounded nervous. "First time for me. First time for all of us. The Krell don't usually attack this close to Coalition space." "Then how do you know what to do?" "We don't," Unji said simply. "We'll figure it out as we go." Hana's skin turned white. "That's your plan? Figure it out?" "Welcome to the human method," Yoonji replied. "We're very good at improvising." Bowman, the medical officer, came onto the bridge carrying supplies. He was an older man with steady hands and a calm voice that reminded Hana of doctors everywhere. "I'm setting up a triage area in Cargo Bay 2, he told Jiho. "We can fit maybe 300 people if we pack them in tight. More if we put them in cold sleep pods." "The colony has 3,000 inhabitants," Hana said. "I know," Bowman replied. "We'll make multiple trips if we can. Save as many as possible, if we can. Save as many as possible. Not save everyone." They were already accepting that some people would die. The thought made Hana feel sick. 2 hours later, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Outpost 7. What Hana saw made her wish she had stayed on the station. The Krell swarm looked like a dark cloud surrounding the colony. Thousands of their ships, if you could call them ships. They were more like living things, grown rather than built. They moved together like a school of fish flowing around the colony's defenses. "Oh hell," Yoonji whispered. "Contact the colony," Jiho ordered. "Tell them we're here to evacuate as many people as we can." The colony's response was immediate. A voice, female and frightened. "This is Colony Administrator Kyung. Thank the stars. We've been trying to get our people to the spaceport, but the Krell are everywhere. They've breached the outer sectors." "How many can you get to the spaceport?" Jiho asked. "Maybe 800 if we're lucky. The rest are trapped in sealed sections. We lost communication with the Eastern District an hour ago." Jiho looked at Daehyun. "Can we land in the Eastern District?" "The Krell are thickest there. We'd have to fly through the swarm. Can you do it?" Daehyun and Yoonji looked at each other. Some kind of understanding passed between them. "Probably die trying," Yoonji said. "But yeah, we can do it." "Then let's—" "Wait," Hana interrupted. Everyone looked at her. "You're going to fly into the middle of a Krell swarm? That's insane, even for humans." "You're right," Jiho agreed. "It is insane. You should stay on the ship when we land. Bowman will keep you safe." "That's not what I meant." But they were already moving. Yoonji brought the ship down toward the colony, weaving between Krell vessels. The Krell noticed them immediately. Dozens of their ships broke off from the main swarm and came after them. Hana watched through the windows as Yoonji performed maneuvers that should have torn the ship apart. They rolled left, dove down, shot upward at an angle that made Hana's stomach revolt. Krell ships fired at them with weapons that looked like organic growths. "Spitting acid and toxins. Shields at 60%, someone called out. "I see it," Yoonji replied through gritted teeth. They dropped through the colony's atmosphere, and Hana saw the Eastern District below. Buildings were burning. Krell warriors, the ground troops, were everywhere. They looked like insects grown to the size of vehicles, all hard shells and too many legs. "Landing zone is hot," Daehyun reported. "I count at least 200 Krell warriors in the immediate area." "Then we'll have to go through them," Jiho said. The ship landed hard in what used to be a plaza. Before it even stopped moving, Daehyun and his security team were heading for the exit. They wore armor and carried weapons that Hana recognized from the historical files. Weapons designed to kill efficiently. Stay here, Jiho told her. Bowman will prepare the medical bay. But Hana found herself unstrapping from her seat. No, Ambassador, no, she repeated. You said I needed to see who humans really are. So I'm going to see. Jiho looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Stay close to me. Do exactly what I say when I say it. Understand? Hana's skin was pure white with terror, but she nodded. They stepped out into hell. The plaza was covered in some kind of organic residue the Krell left behind. The air smelled wrong, chemical and sweet. In the distance, Hana could hear screaming. Daehyun's team had already formed a defensive perimeter. They moved like they'd done this 1,000 times, covering each other, checking corners. When the first Krell warriors came at them, the humans didn't hesitate. Hana had never seen real combat before. The Valari avoided it, but she watched as humans fought with a combination of precision and ferocity that shocked her. They were afraid, she could tell. But they were also completely focused. Building 3, Jiho said, pointing. That's where the colonists should be sealed in. They ran across the plaza. A Krell warrior dropped from above and Hana screamed. But Daehyun was already there, his weapon firing. The creature fell. Keep moving, Jiho said calmly, as if this was normal. The building's door was sealed. Jiho worked on the control panel while Daehyun's team held off more Krell. Behind them, Hana heard the Persistence's weapons firing, keeping the swarm away from their position. The door opened. Inside, Hana saw people. Humans, yes, but also Korthan and 2 Valari and species she didn't recognize. They were huddled together, afraid and hopeful. We're evacuating you, Jiho announced. Form a line. Stay together. Move when I tell you to move. Stop when I tell you to stop. We're going back to the ship. One of the Valari colonists saw Hana and made a sound of surprise. Ambassador? It's okay, Hana found herself saying. These humans came to save us. Trust them. They moved back across the plaza in groups. Daehyun's team formed a protective corridor, and the colonists ran between them. Every few seconds, more Krell appeared. Every few seconds, the humans stopped them. Bowman was waiting at the ship, pulling people inside and immediately checking them for injuries. He worked with the speed of someone who had done this many times. You're okay, he kept saying. You're safe now. You're okay. They made 3 trips into the Eastern District. Each time was more dangerous than the last. The Krell were adapting, learning. They came from different angles. They used the buildings as cover. On the 4th trip, it almost went wrong. They had just reached the building when something hit the plaza. An explosion that threw Hana to the ground. Her ears rang. She couldn't see clearly. Through the ringing, she heard Jiho's voice. Stay down. Something large moved overhead. A Krell ship, she realized. It was landing in the plaza, probably to deploy more warriors. They would be overwhelmed, but Daehyun was already moving. He grabbed something from his pack, a weapon Hana didn't recognize. He ran toward the Krell ship, right toward it, while it was still landing. What is he doing? Hana shouted. Something stupid and brave, Jiho replied. Very human. Daehyun threw the device under the Krell ship. Then he ran back toward them, faster than Hana thought possible. He dove behind cover just as the device exploded. The Krell ship crashed, blocking the plaza. It would slow down reinforcements, giving them time to evacuate more colonists. Is he insane? Hana asked. Probably, Jiho admitted. But it worked. They evacuated 843 people. Not 3,000. Not even close. But 843 people who would have died. As the Persistence pulled away from the colony, climbing back into space, Hana looked down at Outpost 7. Parts of it were already gone, consumed by the Krell. The rest would be gone soon. We couldn't save them all, she said quietly. Jiho stood beside her, looking down at the dying colony. His face was covered in dirt and what might have been blood. No, he agreed. We couldn't. But you tried anyway. Yes. Even though you knew it was impossible. Especially because it was impossible. Jiho corrected gently. Because if we don't try the impossible things, they'll never get done. In the medical bay, Bowman was treating injuries. In the cargo hold, 843 people were alive. Afraid, traumatized, but alive. Hana couldn't sleep. The file glowed on her tablet screen, showing numbers that made no sense. 60 million dead in one war, Another war that killed even more. Weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. A planet that nearly poisoned itself to death through industry and greed. The Valari had fought 3 wars in their entire recorded history. Each one ended when one side retreated to safer territory. Total casualties across all 3 wars. About 8,000. Humans had wars that killed more people in a single day. She found Jiho in the station's observation deck. He stood alone, looking out at the stars. His reflection in the glass looked tired. "I read the file," Hana said. Jiho didn't turn around. "I thought you might. Your world has known 267 major conflicts in the last 1,000 years. You created weapons designed for nothing but killing your own species. You poisoned your own planet and still fight over what remains, yes. How?" The word came out as almost a cry. "How can you walk into danger to save strangers when your own people have done such terrible things to each other?" Jiho finally looked at her. In the dim light, his face looked older than she remembered. "Because we learned. We learned what happens when we don't." "That's not good enough," Hana said. Her skin was dark blue with distress. "The Coalition needs to know if humans are dangerous. After reading that file, I think I have my answer." "You should meet someone," Jiho said quietly. "Before you make up your mind." He took her to a laboratory where a human named Minho was working. Minho had gray hair and gentle eyes. He reminded Hana of a teacher she once had. Someone who made complicated things simple. "Ambassador Hana," Minho said, bowing. "Jiho told me you had questions about human history." "I have concerns," Hana corrected. "Your species has caused enormous suffering." "Yes," Minho agreed simply. "We have. Would you like to know why?" Hana's skin flickered orange. She hadn't expected agreement. "Why?" "Because we're good at surviving," Minho said. He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. Our planet was never easy. We had predators that hunted us. We had diseases that killed us. We had weather that could freeze or burn us depending on where we lived. So we got very, very good at protecting our groups. The display changed, showing early humans living in small tribes. The problem, Minho continued, is that protecting your group sometimes means fighting other groups. We developed weapons to hunt animals, then used those weapons on each other. We learned to organize and cooperate, then used that organization to make armies. Every survival skill we developed had a dark side. That doesn't excuse it, Hana said. No, Minho agreed again. It doesn't. But here's what changed. The display shifted forward in time, showing Earth as it looked now. Green and blue and healing. We nearly destroyed ourselves. Multiple times. And each time we had to look at what we'd done and decide if we wanted to continue existing. We had to choose between destruction and growth. You chose growth? Some of us did. Enough of us. And we taught the next generation who taught the next. We made peace not because we stopped being capable of war, but because we remembered what war cost us. Hana was quiet for a moment. The Valari avoid conflict. We evolved to run from danger, to hide from threats. We've never needed to make the choice between peace and war because war was never in our nature. And that's worked for you, Minho said kindly. Your species is successful. You've survived for millions of years using caution and fear as your guides. But humans evolved differently. We survived through stubbornness and adaptability. Sometimes that made us heroes. Sometimes it made us monsters. How do I know which one you are now? Before Minho could answer, the door opened. A young woman entered, carrying tools and wearing a maintenance uniform. She stopped when she saw them. Sorry, she said. I didn't know anyone was here. I can come back. It's fine, Sora, Minho said. Actually, would you mind talking to Ambassador Hana for a moment? Sora looked confused but nodded. She was young, maybe 25 in human years, with short dark hair and oil stains on her hands. Sora is one of our engineers, Jiho explained. She keeps the human section of the station running. I just fix things, Sora said, shrugging. Tell her about your grandmother, Minho suggested gently. Sora's expression changed, becoming softer. My grandmother was on the colony ship Horizon when it had a life support failure. This was about 40 years ago. The main system crashed, and they had maybe 72 hours before everyone would suffocate. Hana felt her skin start to turn white. She knew this story would not be pleasant. The ship's engineer was killed in the initial malfunction, Sora continued. So my grandmother, who was just a mechanic, had to fix it. The problem was in the central processor. which required constant adjustment to keep running. Someone had to stay awake, monitoring it, making tiny corrections every few minutes. For 72 hours? Hana asked. For 72 hours, Sora confirmed. No sleep. Barely any food. Just standing there, watching the readouts, making adjustments. By the end, she was hallucinating. But she didn't stop. She saved 412 people. That should be impossible, Hana said. Most species would die or lose consciousness. Most humans would too, Sora admitted. She was sick for weeks afterward. But when I asked her about it once, she said she wasn't thinking about the 72 hours. She was thinking about the next 5 minutes. Then the next 5 minutes after that. She just kept choosing not to stop. Sora smiled slightly. That's what humans do, I guess. We don't think about the impossible thing. We just think about the next step. And then the next one. Until suddenly the impossible thing is done. After Sora left, Hana stood in silence. She was trying to process everything she had learned. Humans were capable of terrible violence, but they were also capable of standing awake for 72 hours to save strangers. They could start wars and they could walk into vacuum to rescue people they'd never met. You asked how you can know which one we are, Jiho said quietly. The answer is both. We're both. We carry our history with us, the good and the bad. The question isn't what we're capable of. The question is what we choose to do. But what if you choose wrong? Hana asked. What if humanity joins the coalition and decides to use all that stubborn violence against other species? Then you stop us, Jiho said simply. That's what the coalition is for, isn't it? To make sure no one species becomes a threat. We're not asking you to trust us blindly. We're asking you to trust that we learned from our mistakes. And if we haven't, if we prove ourselves to be the monsters you fear, then the coalition has the power and the right to contain us. Hana looked at him. You would accept that, knowing that other species fear you? We already know other species fear us, Jiho replied. We've known it since we reached the stars and saw how different we were. But fear is just information, remember? It tells you the stakes. It doesn't get to make the decision. Before Hana could respond, alarms started blaring again. But these weren't station alarms. These were emergency broadcast signals from outside. A voice came through every speaker in the station, speaking in standard coalition language. This is Mining Colony Outpost 7. We are under attack by Krell swarm forces. Requesting immediate assistance. Repeat, we are under attack. 3,000 inhabitants, including civilians. Please, someone help us, the message repeated. In the observation deck, Hana felt her skin go white. The Krell swarm. They were every species' nightmare. Hive-minded insects that consumed everything in their path. Even the coalition's military feared them. How far away is the colony? Jiho asked into his communicator. 40 light years, Daehyun's voice responded. But Ambassador, it's outside coalition-protected space. So the Coalition Council is meeting now to vote on a response. But Outpost 7 isn't a coalition colony. No species is required to help them. Hana knew what the vote would be. It would take hours to organize a proper military response. By then, the colony would be gone. And no species would risk their ships. Against the Krell for people who weren't their own. She looked at Jiho and saw something in his expression that made her afraid. You're going to try to save them, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, it's suicide. The Krell swarm destroys everything. You can't fight them. Probably not, Jiho agreed. But we can try to get people out before the swarm consumes the colony completely. The coalition won't authorize it. I know. Hana realized she was shaking. If you do this without authorization, you'll lose your chance at coalition membership. Everything you came here for will be gone. Jiho looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness that held so many worlds. What good is membership if we get it by abandoning 3,000 people to death? And Hana realized that humans truly were both things at once. They were capable of terrible violence and impossible courage. They were stubborn enough to fight wars that lasted years and stubborn enough to stand in a damaged corridor for 72 hours. They were the most dangerous and most reliable species she had ever met. I'm coming with you, she heard herself say. Jiho looked surprised. Ambassador, I need to understand, Hana interrupted. I need to see what happens when humans face something truly impossible. Because if I'm going to recommend your species for coalition membership, I need to know who you really are. You might not like what you see. The Coalition Council chamber was designed to make visitors feel small. It was a vast circular room with seats rising up in tiers, each one holding a representative from a different species. Thousands of years of galactic civilization looked down at the center floor where Hana stood. She'd spent 3 days preparing her testimony, 3 days reviewing everything she had learned about humans, 3 days trying to find the right words to explain what she had witnessed. The council speaker, a member of the ancient Theran race, looked down at her with 3 sets of eyes. Ambassador Hana of the Valari Empire, you were assigned to evaluate humanity's petition for coalition membership. The council requires your assessment. Hana's skin flickered through several colors before settling on a calm green. She had learned something from the humans about not letting fear control her. Honorable Council, she began, I was asked to determine whether humanity should be accepted into the coalition. To answer that question, I first had to answer a different one. What are humans? She activated a display showing Earth. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them. They weren't the strongest species. They weren't the fastest. They weren't the best at anything except one thing. They refused to give up. The display changed, showing human history, wars and weapons and all the terrible things in the classified file. They are capable of great violence, Hana continued. They have killed each other in conflicts that lasted years. They created weapons that could destroy their own world. They nearly did destroy it several times. When I first learned this, I was afraid. I thought humanity was too dangerous to be trusted. She paused, letting that sink in. But then I watched a human walk into vacuum to save people he didn't know. I watched humans fly into a Krell swarm to evacuate a colony they had no obligation to protect. I watched them risk everything again and again for strangers. And I realized something important. The display changed again, showing the Persistence pulling away from Outpost 7. Humans aren't fearless, Hana said clearly. They feel fear as strongly as the Valari do. Maybe stronger. They know exactly how dangerous their actions are. They understand the risks better than most species because they've spent their entire history facing them. A council member from the Korthan delegation spoke up. Then why do they take such risks? Are they simply unstable? No, Hana replied. They're stubborn. When a human senses danger, they don't just feel fear. They also feel something else. Responsibility. The knowledge that someone needs help and they have the ability to provide it. For humans, that responsibility weighs more than fear. Another council member, this one Valari like herself, made a concerned gesture. Ambassador Hana, surely you can see the danger in accepting a species with such a violent history. What prevents them from turning that stubborn violence against us? This was the question Hana had been expecting. The one that mattered most. Nothing prevents it, she admitted. And everything prevents it. Nothing, because humans are capable of violence. They proved that throughout their history. Everything, because they learned from that history. They nearly destroyed themselves and they chose not to. They made peace not because they stopped being capable of war, but because they understood what war cost. She looked around at the council. Most of our species evolved to avoid conflict. We run from danger. We hide from threats. We've been successful because we're cautious. But humans evolved differently. They evolved to face problems head-on. And yes, sometimes that made them monsters, but it also made them heroes. The display now showed the 843 people they had evacuated. These people are alive because humans didn't calculate the odds. They didn't measure the risk against the benefit. They saw people who needed help and they helped. No species asked them to. No treaty required it. They did it because to them it was the right thing to do. That's not rational, someone pointed out. No, Hana agreed. It's human. The council speaker leaned forward. Ambassador Hana, we've reviewed the incident at Outpost 7. Humanity acted without coalition authorization. They risked a diplomatic incident. They endangered themselves and their ship. Do you consider this responsible behavior? I consider it incredibly irresponsible, Hana said. And I consider it the most admirable thing I've ever witnessed. There was silence in the chamber. The question, Hana continued, is not whether humans are capable of violence or irresponsibility. They are. The question is what they choose to do with those capabilities, and based on everything I've seen, they choose to help. They choose to save lives. They choose to walk into danger because someone needs them to. She took a breath. I recommend that the coalition accept humanity's petition for membership. Not because they're perfect. They're not. Not because they're safe. They're not. But because the galaxy needs species who refuse to give up, who see impossible situations and try anyway, who carry their fear forward and act despite it. The council deliberated for 6 hours. Hana waited outside with the human delegation. Jiho sat calmly, reading something on a tablet. Daehyun cleaned his equipment with methodical precision. Funji fidgeted, unable to sit still. How do you think it went? Sora asked nervously. I don't know, Hana admitted. The vote could go either way. Well, Jiho said, not looking up from his tablet. If they say no, at least we tried. Doesn't it bother you? Hana asked. You came all this way. You risked so much. And they might just say no. Jiho finally looked up. Of course it bothers me. I'm not emotionless. But being bothered doesn't change anything. We did what we thought was right. The coalition will make whatever decision they make. We can't control that. How are you so calm? I'm not calm, Jiho corrected. I'm just good at waiting. When the council finally called them back, Hana's skin went through so many colors she stopped tracking them. The council speaker stood. The Coalition Council has reviewed humanity's petition for membership. The vote was close. Many members expressed concerns about humanity's history and their tendency toward reckless action. Hana felt her heart sinking. However, the speaker continued, the council recognizes that humanity has demonstrated qualities the coalition values: courage, determination, and a willingness to help others even at great personal cost. Therefore, by a vote of 53 to 47, humanity's petition is accepted. Welcome to the Galactic Coalition. The human delegation showed remarkable restraint. They didn't cheer or celebrate. They simply stood and bowed respectfully to the council. But Hana saw Yunji grip Sora's hand tightly, and she saw Daehyun's shoulders relax just slightly. Later, after the formalities were complete, Hana found Jiho on an observation deck. He was looking out at the stars again like he had been that night she confronted him about the classified files. You did it, she said. We did it, Jiho corrected. Your testimony made the difference. Thank you. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. I have a confession, Hana said. When I first met you, I was afraid of humans. I thought you might be dangerous. We are dangerous, Jiho said simply. I know, but now I understand that being dangerous isn't the same as being bad. A species can be capable of great harm and great good at the same time. That's a very human philosophy, Jiho said with a slight smile. Maybe I learned it from humans. Hana looked out at the stars. I'm still afraid of your species sometimes. Afraid of what you might become. You're so determined, so stubborn. What if you decide to do something terrible? Then stop us, Jiho said. That's what friends are for, right? To keep each other honest. Friends? I'd like to think so. You did just help my species join the coalition, and you flew into a Krell swarm with us, which I think qualifies as extreme friendship. Hana's skin shifted to a warm purple color. Among the Valari, it meant affection. Can I ask you something? She said. That question I asked you in the beginning. Aren't you afraid? Do you remember what you told me? I said fear is just information. It tells me the stakes. It doesn't get to make my decisions. I've been thinking about that answer, Hana said. For my species, fear does make our decisions. It's kept us alive for millions of years. But watching humans, I've realized something. Maybe there are different kinds of strength. My people are strong because we survive through caution. Your people are strong because you survive through action. Neither is wrong, Jiho said. No, neither is wrong. But together? Hana looked at him. Together we might be stronger than either species alone. That's the idea behind the coalition, isn't it? Different species, different strengths working together? Yes, Hana agreed. Though I think most species will need time to understand humans. You confuse people. You walk toward danger when everyone else runs away. You refuse to accept impossible situations. You make decisions based on what should be rather than what is. Is that a compliment or a criticism? Both, Hana said honestly. You're frustrating and inspiring in equal measure. Jiho laughed. It was the first time she had heard him truly laugh. I'll take that. They watched the stars together, a human and a Valari, representing two very different ways of surviving in a dangerous universe. Can I ask you a question now? Jiho said. Of course. That moment when you decided to come with us to Outpost 7, you were terrified. Your skin was pure white, but you came anyway. Why? The stars didn't care about Jiho's fear. They just watched, cold and distant as he pulled himself along the outside of the station. His magnetic boots clicked against the metal hull with each step. The sound traveled through his suit but not into the vacuum around him. In the observation room, Hana couldn't look away. Commander Tajin stood beside her now, another human with silver hair and calm eyes. He watched the monitors showing Jiho's progress with the same steady expression Jiho had worn. "How can he be so calm?" Hana whispered. Tajin glanced at her. "What makes you think he's calm?" "Look at him. His breathing is steady. His movements are controlled. He shows no signs of panic." "No," Tajin agreed. "He doesn't panic. But that doesn't mean he isn't afraid." He pointed to one of the monitors showing Jiho's vital signs. "See his heart rate? It's elevated. His stress hormones are high. He knows exactly how dangerous this is. Then why does he continue?" Tajin smiled slightly. "Because knowing you're afraid and letting fear control you are different things. We learned that lesson a long time ago." On the screen, Jiho reached a section where the hull had buckled. Twisted metal stuck out like broken teeth. He had to navigate around it carefully, testing each handhold before trusting his weight to it. "On Earth," Tajin continued, "my species wasn't the strongest. We weren't the fastest. We weren't the best at anything except one thing. We were the best at not giving up." Hana's skin flickered orange with confusion. "I don't understand." "There were animals on our world that could run faster than us, so we chased them until they collapsed from exhaustion. There were predators stronger than us, so we threw rocks at them until they left us alone. We survived not because we were fearless, but because we were too stubborn to quit." A warning light flashed on the monitor. Part of the damage section was shifting. Debris floated past Jiho's helmet. He froze, waiting for the movement to stop, then continued forward. Hana felt her fear sense screaming. "He needs to turn back. The structure is failing." "He knows," Tajin said quietly. "Then why?" "Because 8 people are dying on the other side of that wall. And 40 minutes is now 35 minutes. Jiho reached the manual override panel. It was behind a safety cover that required a cutting torch to open. He pulled the torch from his belt and started cutting. The light was bright even in the darkness of space. "Your species confuses me," Hana admitted. "The Valari evolved to survive through caution. When we sense danger, we freeze or hide. It has kept us alive for millions of years. But humans," she gestured at the screen, "you sense danger and walk toward it." "Not always," Tajin said. "Sometimes we run. Sometimes we hide. But when someone needs help, when lives are at stake, we have a hard time walking away. It's not that we don't feel fear. We just feel responsibility more." The cutting torch finished its work. Jiho pulled the cover away and began working on the override controls. His gloved fingers moved carefully over the panel. One wrong move could trigger another seal and trap him outside. Then it happened. A support beam, weakened by the initial breach, finally gave way. It swung down like a massive hammer and caught Jiho across the legs. He slammed against the hull and his torch spun away into space. Hana made a sound like a bird's cry. Her skin went pure white. On the monitor, Jiho wasn't moving. "Get him out of there," Hana shouted at Tajin. "Send someone to bring him back." But Tajin was watching the vital signs monitor. "Wait, he could be dying." "Wait," Tajin repeated, and there was something in his voice that made Hana stop. On the screen, Jiho's hand moved. Then his other hand. He pushed himself up slightly and looked down at his legs. The beam had pinned them against the hull, but his suit was still intact. No breach, no air loss. Through the communicator, they heard him take a deep breath. "Well," he said, and his voice was shaking just slightly. "That wasn't ideal." "Sir." "Stay still," Daehyun's voice came through. "We're sending a rescue team." "No time," Jiho said. He was looking around, his head turning left and right. 28 minutes left. If you send a team, they won't get here before the oxygen runs out." "Sir, you can't move that beam. It's too heavy." "I know." Jiho was still looking around. Then he stopped. "There, that piece of debris. The long one shaped like a pole." Hana watched as Jiho stretched his arm out, reaching for a piece of broken metal floating about 2 meters away. He couldn't quite reach it. So he took off his safety tether and pushed himself up, using the beam that had him pinned as leverage. "What is he doing?" Hana asked. "Something very human," Tajin replied. Jiho caught the debris and pulled it back. Then he wedged it under the beam and began to push down. Using the hull as a fulcrum, he was creating a lever. Basic physics. Simple machines. The kind of thing humans had been using for thousands of years. The beam moved. Just a little at first, then more. Jiho pulled his legs free and immediately went back to the override panel. Hana realized she was shaking. He could have died. Yes, Taejin agreed. And he knew it. Yes. But he continued anyway. That's what I've been trying to explain. Taejin looked at her. Fear is information for us. Data to consider. But it doesn't get to decide what we do. We decide that. On the screen, Jiho finished the override sequence. Deep inside the station, seals began to open. Air rushed into the trapped section. The 8 people inside would live. I have a question, Hana said softly. If your species feels fear like mine does but acts despite it, what else are humans capable of? Taejin was quiet for a moment. I think that's what scares other species about us. We scare ourselves sometimes too. Jiho was making his way back now, moving slowly but steadily along the hull. His breathing was heavier than before and his vital signs showed exhaustion, but he didn't stop. When he finally came through the airlock, Hana was waiting. He took off his helmet and she saw that his face was pale and covered in sweat. His hands were shaking slightly. You're afraid, she said. I never stopped being afraid, Jiho replied. I just had work to do. 2 of the people he saved were Valari. They approached him with their skin showing deep purple, a color Hana recognized as profound respect. They didn't speak human standard well, so they simply bowed. Jiho bowed back, then had to lean against the wall because his legs weren't working quite right yet. You saved my people, Hana said. You didn't have to. We haven't even accepted humans into the coalition yet. You could have waited for the official rescue team. Could have, Jiho agreed, but didn't. Why? He looked at her with those calm human eyes. Would you ask that question if I had saved only humans? No. Then you already know the answer. Later, in her quarters, Hana received a message from a coalition intelligence officer. It came with a file attached. A classified file about humanity, about their history, about their wars and weapons and all the ways they had learned to hurt each other. She opened it and began to read. Her skin slowly turned from green to blue to white as she learned what humans were truly capable of, and she realized that Jiho walking into danger to save strangers might not be humanity's most frightening quality. Their capacity for violence was. The station floated in the darkness like a metal flower, its petals spread wide against the stars. Inside, Jiho walked through corridors filled with creatures he had only seen in training videos. Some had scales that shimmered purple under the lights. Others had too many eyes or not enough limbs. He kept his face calm and his steps steady. This was humanity's first real chance. After 200 years of reaching for the stars, they finally had a seat at the table. Or they would if this meeting went well. Ambassador Jiho, a voice called. He turned to see Dae-hyun, his security officer, walking quickly toward him. The Valari representative is waiting in conference room 7. Jiho nodded. The Valari were important. Their empire controlled 12 systems and had been part of the Galactic Coalition for 3,000 years. If they approved of humanity, others might follow. Conference room 7 was smaller than he expected. The walls were a soft blue color that was supposed to make everyone feel calm. It didn't work on Jiho. He had learned long ago that feeling calm and being calm were 2 different things. She stood by the window looking out at the stars. Her skin looked like crystal, catching the light and breaking it into colors. Right now, those colors were pale green and yellow. Jiho had studied Valari biology. Green meant caution. Yellow meant curiosity. She was both afraid and interested. Ambassador Hana, he said, bowing slightly. Thank you for meeting with me. She turned. Her eyes were large and dark, with no white around them at all. When she looked at him, Jiho felt like she was seeing more than just his face. The Valari could sense danger the way humans could smell smoke. Their whole species had evolved to feel fear better than anyone else. Ambassador Jiho, she replied. Her voice had a musical quality like wind chimes. I wanted to see what humans are like before I make my report. They sat across from each other at a table made of something that looked like glass but felt warm to the touch. For 20 minutes, they talked about trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. It was all very polite and very boring. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed along the walls. A mechanical voice spoke in a language Jiho didn't understand, then switched to human standard. Hull breach in Sector 9. Emergency protocols engaged. All personnel moved to designated safe zones. Hana's skin went pure white. Jiho had read about this too. White meant terror. We need to go, she said, standing so fast her chair fell over. but Jiho was already at the door panel, checking the station map. His mind worked through the problem like he was solving a puzzle. Sector 9 was 3 levels down. The breach was in the docking area where a cargo ship had tried to disconnect too early. The station had automatically sealed the damaged section, but that meant people were trapped. How many? He asked Dae-hyun through his communicator. 8 confirmed in the sealed section. 2 Valari, 3 Korthan, 1 human maintenance worker, and 2 others we can't identify yet. They have maybe 40 minutes of oxygen. Jiho studied the map. The main access was blocked by the emergency seals, but there was a maintenance corridor that ran along the outside of the station. It would mean going through a section exposed to vacuum. Dangerous but possible. Tell Commander Taejin I'm going to need an EVA suit and a cutting torch, Jiho said. Sir, the safety officer says we should wait for the rescue team from the Coalition flagship. They'll be here in 90 minutes. The people trapped don't have 90 minutes, Hana was staring at him. Her skin had gone from white to a dark blue Jiho didn't recognize. You can't be serious, she said. The structure in that section is unstable. The hull could collapse at any moment. Going out there is suicide. It's the only way to reach them in time, Jiho said simply. 10 minutes later, he stood in the airlock, wearing an EVA suit that smelled like recycled air and old sweat. Through the small window, he could see Hana in the observation room. Her skin was flickering between colors so fast it made his eyes hurt just to watch. Dae-hyun helped him check the suit seals one more time. Sir, are you sure about this? No, Jiho said honestly. But being sure isn't part of the job description. Through the communicator, he heard Hana's voice. Ambassador Jiho, please wait. The Coalition rescue team is only 75 minutes away now. You don't need to do this. He could hear the fear in her voice. Not fear for the trapped people. Fear for him. Or maybe fear of him. He wasn't sure which. 75 minutes is still too long, he said, but the risk. I understand the risk. Then why? Her voice broke slightly. Why would you do this for people you don't even know? For species that haven't even accepted yours into the Coalition? Jiho paused with his hand on the airlock release. It was a good question. The kind of question that deserved a real answer. Because they're people, he said. That's enough. But aren't you afraid? The question hung in the air between them. Through the window, Jiho could see her watching him. Her whole body was tense like a spring wound too tight. This was the moment that mattered, he realized. Not the rescue itself, but this answer. Yes, he said simply. I'm terrified. Her skin flickered with confusion. Orange mixed with blue. Then why? Fear is just information, Jiho interrupted gently. It tells me the stakes. It tells me this matters. It tells me I could die out there. He took a breath, then smiled even though she couldn't see his face through the helmet. But fear doesn't get to make my decisions. I do. He hit the airlock release before she could respond. The inner door closed and the air began to pump out. Through the window, he saw Hana's skin turn completely white again. The outer door opened and Jiho stepped out into the void. Behind him, in the observation room, Hana pressed her hand against the glass. Her fear sense was screaming. Every instinct she had told her that this human was walking toward death. But he had done it anyway. She had come here to evaluate whether humans deserved a place in the Coalition. Now, watching Jiho's small figure float toward the damaged section of the station, she realized she had already learned something important about his species. They were either the bravest beings she had ever met, or the most insane. She wasn't sure which option frightened her more.